First time I made toast in the corridor and set the fire alarm off. And it was really awful. But I actually think that might have helped me with my pitch because I came
Memorable.
in. It was very memorable with this toast that I'd cooked in the corridor and I'd brought my toast with me. And I remember Al Overton, who was he was the guy doing the pitch of the Planet Organic at the time. And he said, yeah, this tastes pretty good.
Welcome to Brand New Taste, a podcast for brands in the food and beverage industry, focusing on new innovation and how understanding taste is vital to commercial success.
Mairi and Eliza, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Mairi, we were just recounting the tales of when we first met. 2018, was it a thing?
I think so.
It was the early days of both of our businesses, Mergulo and Tastehead. And so it's a pleasure to have you on now, having both of our businesses sort of grown and had challenges and overcome them, etc. But obviously we're here to talk about Mergulo. I remember when we first met, there was this dream to get your products into Whole Foods. There was already a plant-based butter there, which I can say I didn't think was anywhere near as good as yours. And so we knew the potential, but as at the start, it often seems such a sort of a lofty goal to aim for. But not only did you achieve it, but you've gone on to have great success since and growing still. And so great to catch up now and go through a bit more about the journey. So maybe it's best if you just kick us off with a little bit of a background and introduction as to how it all came about and what's going on.
Well, I'm Mairi Hilleary. I'm the founder of Mergulo, which is a plant-based butter that tastes just as good as dairy butter. And we've grown from a team of one. Now I'm joined by my sister, who's also my COO. And we basically run this brand that's now stocked in Holland and Barrett, Harrods, Whole Foods, Planet Organic, and a whole range of independents, mainly based in London, but it is across the country. And yeah, it's just grown from there.
And it's fair to say that it was your recipe that you came to us with. You actually had some background and some experience that you were able to use in terms of getting the recipe started. And yeah, you got it kicked off. It's your recipe that it all came from.
Yeah, the recipe was built by me in the kitchen on a very old kitchen blender. It took a long time, and we basically came to you when I'd been to a very small market stand with that recipe, and it was selling very well, but it was in a tiny, unscalable style product that we didn't have a supply chain. I was buying the products from Tesco. I needed it to be something that could be manufactured so that I could get it into a Whole Foods or any retailer. So we came and said, right, we really need some help. It's being hand packaged in greaseproof paper that takes sort of half an hour to do. Can you help us make this something that's not just for a market stand? And that's kind of where we met.
Yeah,
at that point in the journey.
And look, it's fair to say the product that you came to us was genuinely already really good. I think we saw that we felt there were opportunities to make it even better across so many areas, from taste to colour to texture, etc. And shelf life and all of these technical things that, we've seen it over the years, that people like yourself start with a recipe and get it to a really good point, but getting it ready for a manufacturer, etc. is a different beast. So it was a pleasure to sort of help you out a little bit at the early sort of phase of the brand.
But I do think it was good, obviously, that you came with something that was so good in the first place. We don't see that that often, because a lot of people will come to us just with an idea. So the fact that you had something that was really promising anyways, for us, was really encouraging.
Yeah. And so, Eliza, how did you come to be involved with your sister on the brand?
It was lockdown when I definitely didn't plan on jumping straight into the company. Mairi was at home making vegan butter on a sort of our granny's electric whisk. And she spent hours in the kitchen and then forced me to taste all these
awful
vegan butters. But then slowly, as you kept doing the recipe, I was like, actually, this does taste really good. And I could see how the plant-based market was growing massively. And so I was at home, and then I was actually planning on trying to find a normal job. Was like, I'll help Mairi while I'm looking for one. And then we kind of got roped into it. We managed to get
trapped.
Yeah, Mairi was sort of like, just help me for a couple of months. I was like, of course. And then still here now, kind of a year and a half on. But that's how I got into it. And then we kind of got in touch with the Whole Foods buyer, and it all went from there. But my side is definitely, Mairi's ideas, does the recipe, branding. I'm more operations, logistics, commercial planning kind of thing. So she's front of house, I'm back office.
I like the way you describe it as a not normal job. By default. I was going to get a normal job. I did this instead.
Yeah, I ended up in this one. And it definitely is, it's different for sure.
We were just talking before we started recording about the strength of having someone who is either a family member or a close friend like Micah and I, although, like I said, we're almost half brothers by this point.
Yeah.
The strength of having that in a business, if it works, because it could easily not work. It takes you to be the right sort of people and have the right dynamic. Yeah. But if you can work together and it can work, it is an enormous strength, especially when you're starting out and you've got all that sort of self-doubt or questions that you want to bounce off somebody and just that kind of loyalty and support. I would 100%
say that the butter would not be here today if Eliza hadn't joined. And I think it's that key of being able to disagree and be okay with disagreeing and not feel threatened by not being exactly aligned is something that's quite hard in a relationship normally. And that's something that we're really lucky with. I think when you hire someone, if you're the one choosing the person to come on and it's your thing, you've got to think they're going to be better than you. Otherwise you become micromanaging. And that's why I'd say our relationship really works.
Well, no, I think it works because we're both good at different things. So the things that Mairi can do, I am terrible at, and I would be like, that's your role. So it kind of works because we're not clashing and trying to do the same thing. So long term, we both have different skill sets that match up quite well. Like you said, basically being able to have a huge fight, and it's absolutely
One thing that I just picked up from what you were saying earlier, Eliza, is that I think is interesting is the fact that you're both not vegan, but you decided to make this vegan butter. So it'd be good just to get a quick sort of why did you decide to produce this?
Well, I think that we both are Ballymaloe trained chefs. And we used that as a way of making money through university. And then afterwards, when I was trying to figure out what to do, I did a lot of private cooking. And there was so much movement on allergies, plant-based living. So working as a chef, a lot of people require dairy-free. And, when you're trying to make a really delicious mash, using margarine in it, from a chef's perspective, you think, God, I'm kind of embarrassed with what I'm serving. So I definitely started developing some cashew-based mixtures, is probably what I'd call it, to help with that. There isn't something in the market that was a quality chef standard butter. You could get a margarine butter, but they've been around for years and people don't use them on a chef standard because of that. And we both feel that people need to reduce the amount of meat and dairy that we're eating, and you don't have to be plant-based to do your bit to help raise the standard of plant-based living. So that's kind of what the stance we've taken is, let's get something that tastes really great, and that's why we eat it. And it happens to be plant-based, it happens to be better for the planet, it happens to be better for your health, and then we can have, less but good quality meat and dairy that's, from your local butcher, and it's you're having it once or twice a week and you're not having it 3 times a day. And therefore we need really good replacements that make us feel like they're not a sacrifice.
Yeah. And so I suppose that's your pitch to people who are non-vegans and you want to encourage them to eat it. What's the feedback that you get? I suppose people are, I would imagine, quite surprised because it is a really good alternative. It's got, if I was to describe the taste, it's not like, doesn't taste overly of coconut or the cashews. You've got that kind of umami hit, that butteriness, that richness that you would get from a dairy butter. So what's this kind of feedback that you get from non-vegans?
Well, I would say we also at the beginning, we do a lot of the sampling ourselves. So all the shows, so we meet customers trying it, which actually is one of my favorite things because you get direct feedback. And my favorite is when someone comes over and go, oh no, I don't eat vegan products. And then I'm like, please just try. I'd love to hear some feedback. And they're usually quite resistant. It takes a bit of coercing to get them to do it. Or they'll often say something, I've tried plant-based products before and it was disgusting. So it's sort of, then that's written off. But once they try it, I mean, it's pretty much every time.
Well, I always say the reason to eat it is because of the taste. Just have it if you like it, and that's why we've done a lot of blind testing with dairy products and said which do you like the best, and then that's have this because it tastes good. That's the only reason to buy it, and then you happen to get all the benefits alongside that. But if it doesn't taste good, you're not enjoying your life. You're not feeling good about it. It's got to taste good. So I think that's why we've tested it on lots of older customers who maybe aren't so interested in the plant-based movement, and they love it. So that's been a really good thing for us.
So let's talk about the product development journey, because you started it and you got it to a really great place. You then come to us and we worked with you on various technical aspects. You've then transitioned from your kind of home kitchen to another kitchen, to scaling up with a manufacturer, etc. Take us through that journey, because you've really been sort of a key part of that. It's been very much your personal journey. How did you find that? What were the sort of the biggest challenges and the points along the journey that kind of stick out to you the most?
Well, I think first off, I wanted to work in packaging. That was my dream. I wanted to work for Pearl Fisher, which is quite a famous packaging company, and I didn't have any of the right experience. I didn't have a graphic design course, and I spoke to my father and said, I really want to get in. And he said, well, why don't you, I found this place that he's talking called Bread and Jam Festival. Why don't you go there, talk to him, get him on LinkedIn. You might find that if you've met the CEO, you might be able to get in somehow. So I did that, and I thought, before I get there, if I was a packaging guy, what would be exciting to do branding on? And I walked down all the supermarket aisles, and there was crisps, all different colours, chocolate, amazing, tonic water. It's all really exciting. And I just walked past butter. There was nothing interesting there. It was exactly the same as that was when I was 12, dominated by Lurpak, Anchor, President, and then, some margarine brands. And that was it. There was nothing cool or exciting, dairy or non-dairy. So I thought, great, if I was a packaging guy, this would be a really exciting space to innovate. I'd be really excited by that. So I went into the Brand and Jam Festival and queued up at the end of his talk and said, I've got a butter company. I'd love you to do the branding. And he said, great. It'll be
fully pretending at this point.
Fully pretending. And he said, great. Quoted me an extortionate amount. And I said, perfect. We've got the cash. That's great. Can I get your LinkedIn details? Yeah. We did add each other on LinkedIn. We did chat. But during the course of that festival, I was so inspired by all these food founders who were doing their talks that I thought, God, I actually really want to do this. And that's what led me to go home. I'd already got my experience with the chef world of plant-based alternative things in the background, and we'd been using sort of cashew mixtures to create that. But that wasn't the thinking. I came back and I thought, right, I'm going to try and do a butter, and I couldn't make a good quality dairy butter that was going to compete with Lurpak. It was quite like, after 2 goes, you realise these guys know what they're doing. So I thought, it's got to be plant-based. And then that led to 6 months of getting incredibly fat, incredibly unhappy. I scoured YouTube videos, weird, ways of making mixtures and emulsifying things and fats, and terrible butter that all of our family had to try over and over again, powdery, and then got one. So I'd say it took about 6 months to get something that actually was formed, but it went off in 3 weeks. But, it tasted good, and we got it into some packaging that took hours to wrap up. And we went to this show, which was the Plant Powered Expo. And I said to my parents, I made 50 pats, and they said, my dad, he said, I think you'll sell 20. We got there, was selling at $3.99, and it sold all 50 within 1 hour, and it was a 2-day show. And I remember that was when we were like, oh God, we were racing home trying to make more. So that was when I thought, okay, maybe this is something that people want. Maybe this isn't just, interesting on packaging. It's also of something that people are looking for, and they can't find something that tastes good. So that's when we kind of went to you and said, right, let's make this a real thing. We're going to try and make it something that we can actually use and sell and market.
Yeah, and it's a delicate recipe, as we know firsthand. It's not easy to get all of these ingredients to emulsify in a natural way without throwing in a load of nasties and E numbers, etc. And so much of the time that we worked together was trying to get things to be more consistent, as well as sort of, the improvements across the board. And the reason that that's so important is not just for you when you're making it yourself, but then the eventual dream of getting it into a co-manufacturer so that you can be free to sell and market and grow the brand rather than just be chained to the production side of things. So how was that journey? Because this is something that, with all of our startup clients, or the vast majority, even if we're developing something that's really innovative, finding a suitable co-manufacturer can still often be the biggest challenge. And I know it wasn't easy for you. So what was that journey like, trying to find someone you could outsource production to?
Chaos.
It was I'd say it was our biggest challenge.
It is
by a mile, for sure. Trying to produce. You started in the kitchen at home, and then when we got the Whole Foods buyer, we were talking to them, and they said, are you ready to produce for us, and will you be able to deliver it in 3 months? At this point, we had no packaging, nowhere to produce it, no ingredients sourced, and we just went, yeah,
absolutely,
we can get that sorted, no problem. Sort of hang up the call, and we're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And then I sort of desperately started learning all about salsa and food hygiene. We've got this tiny little site, bought secondhand equipment and put our blue hairnets on, and we're making
We
it
made
ourselves.
It was a hang up, and then be like, right, we'll get those to you.
Which is often a good way to start it, because until you've proved that you can make it at some sort of scale, then you can take that along to a third party manager and say, well, we've done it and it's consistent, and now we need more.
And
volume.
if they're telling you something isn't possible, and you're like, I know it's possible.
Yeah, because I've done it
many times.
Yeah. So it's not a bad way to start at all. And we do recommend a lot of our clients.
You
to
build
start
into
that
the
way.
story. I mean, you know, people want they buy into these brands and the premium nature of them, partly because of the founder story and that kind of credibility and genuine nature that comes along. And if you've actually handmade it as well, that's
definitely something that I didn't realise going into it. I thought you just asked a manufacturer and they said yes, and then it's a bit like being on the X Factor. You've got to pitch and sell them the dream like a retailer and say, I'm going to be something that grows, because they're not interested in doing all the trial work unless you're going to have the volumes that, you know.
It's something we were just talking about on a previous episode about how you've really got to try and treat your first manufacturer like an investor. And I think people maybe don't fully believe us when we say it, but it is, like you've just said, it can be the biggest challenge of getting your product to market. And it's such a key relationship to sort of nurture and grow.
Definitely.
You've already talked about the taste is really important to the brand. Where does it sit though, alongside everything else, from your kind of your ethics, your sustainability side of things, the plant-based elements? Where does taste fit amongst all of those?
So we've got three main USPs, that sort of core values, which would be taste, 100% natural and plastic free, but taste is top. You know, taste for us has always been the main thing. I think you've got to make something that tastes amazing and then work backwards and get it to be as healthy and as good for the planet, and get as many good things in that as you can. But if it doesn't taste good, no one's going to buy it, so you're not going to make any difference. So that's kind of, it's always been right at the top.
And then I'd say the natural is lots of plant-based products, you will know far better than us, filled with sort of, you look at the back and it's hundreds of ingredients and you have no idea what they are. And I just think for customers, you want to know what you're eating, and if you're eating a plant-based option, it shouldn't be more synthetic or unnatural.
Yeah, there's a lot to it about
than normal dairy. So that's kind of a big part as well, is we want it to be sort of clean, simple, and that kind of fits in with the whole branding as well. Sort of,
we want it to be like the innocent smoothies of butter. We want it to have 7 simple ingredients, so it competes with dairy on its simplicity, which I think is something that a lot of plant-based products don't do, and it needs to make you feel like it's simple and natural and good for you as well.
And where does your founder story fit within the brand? Is it something that you talk about on pack, on a website? Do you really leverage that founder story as part of the brand, or do you take more of a back seat from it and just let the products, like how have you sort of approached that, and why?
Well, I would say I definitely avoid being included in that. Mairi is definitely,
but it's something that we haven't used on the packaging. We don't sort of do this sort of sister co-founder, and maybe it's something that we should do. At the moment, we focus a lot more on trying to have elements of the natural, elements of the fact that it's tastes great, but we don't. That's something that we actually haven't done a lot of marketing on. I think if we had a higher budget, the PR, we'd probably try and push that, but we haven't.
Look, with me asking this, I'm asking because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's two different directions that you see people work. Either direction can work. And it's just, I'm always intrigued because it's a conversation that comes up with a lot of startups, especially if there's a story, and sometimes the founder can be a real personality. You sort of have to look at it and think, well, that's a potential asset, but you've got to be careful about how you do it, because I also think that we've seen over the years more and more, especially since the kind of foodie revolution and startups and challenger brands started stealing market share, there was quite a lot of kind of the founder would have a photo front of pack. And I think it's easy that you can go too far with it and people just kind of roll their eyes a little bit. So it is a great asset, but you've got to be quite considered about when to use it and when not to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we've included the story on the website, and it's you can find, if you're interested, it's easy to find out. But I think at the end we want you to buy it because it tastes good is kind of our main, I would say, point.
I think so. I think this with social media, you can become a lot more part of your brand visually, and some people are very natural at every day getting on and filming themselves, and I think it's amazing and it goes a long way. I think it is a personality trait. It's not something that either of us probably are naturally inclined to do, but it is something that I think you do have to pick whether you're going to become the face of your brand or not.
Yeah.
Which we haven't gone down.
I think you say if you're not naturally disposed to it, then you don't want to force it.
Play
It'll
too
seem
soon.
forced.
Yeah.
The question I've got, which is one that I always ask anyone, any of the brands we work with, is the name Mergulo.
Yes.
So it'd be good to just understand where that comes from.
Yeah. So Mergulo is a phrase that means to dive into life in Brazilian, but they speak Portuguese, so Portuguese. And we wanted the brand to be about diving in. Butter dives into the pan. It's not frilly. It's not it's a get stuck in, cook with us. This is great. So we really wanted to create a character with the brand that was similar to that, not, anti things. We're trying to say everybody's involved, everybody can have this, everybody can make a difference. It doesn't matter who you are. Come join us. We're going to make some great food with this stuff. So that was what the name was born from. And also because it's not very well known, we kind of felt that it would, a bit like Kit Kat or something, you can own then the identity of it instead of saying, we looked at hundreds of names. Naming it was a very difficult part of the whole thing. And we did look at things like Daisy, and I just felt like it didn't have as much grit, even though it would have made a lot more sense. Flour, like, buttercups, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's been a really difficult thing, knowing whether we should have gone down that simple route or whether choosing something that, with time is going to be able to have its own character and you can kind of create that for it.
Yeah, as we well know, trying to find a name for a business that's not been taken before is
that was
and because in this day and age you've got to think of like SEO and all of these little things that mean names are probably more important than maybe they were sort of historically. It's a challenge.
The other thing I was going to ask, and you obviously having the sort of background in cooking, and also you're saying about cooking with it, one thing that I think is most people sort of think of butter as a spreading on toast or bread or whatever. But you open up your pack and it says, melt me, spread me, bake me. So that's what I love about it as well, is that it's versatile and that you can use it like you can use butter and not just as another spread. Which a lot of them are, I think, as well, the previous ones.
I mean, you should probably, we've been doing, that's a major thing for us, that it's not just for toast, it's a chef's quality butter. So we've done a lot of work with bakeries. You've done quite a bit of...
Yeah, well, when right at the beginning, we've worked with some bakeries to see if they can produce pastries with it, do the full scale cakes, butter icings, all that kind of thing. And the feedback's been, yes, you can, it works. So that was our thing, is we didn't want it to be just a spread. It's something that anything that you can do with dairy butter, you can use our butter for as well. And also adding flavour to your food. Like you said, like butter's the staple to so many recipes and it gets forgotten about. No one celebrates butter and goes, this is why it tastes so good, because you've got that delicious, rich creaminess. And that's kind of, we're trying to bring back, celebrate butter, celebrate the simplicity, all that kind of thing.
Like the rise that olive oil has had, and good quality olive oil, hasn't really happened with butter. Obviously, you can get your artisan, beautiful butters from your farm shop, but in retailers, you don't have that good quality butter that's going to be great for cooking in the same way. And I think it's something that deserves its reputation to be
here
praised.
Yeah.
So we've spoken about the product development, the branding. Let's quickly cover the commercial side of things, because we spoke about the dream of getting listed in Whole Foods, and not only did you, but you got more shelf space than the previous brand had, and multiple products in, etc. And now 400 and how many Holland and Barrett stores?
Yeah, 485 now.
Yeah, Holland and Barrett stores.
Amazing. Lots of other stores. How has that journey been, going from sort of markets to independents to chains, and probably what you got plans for the future? What have been the key learnings or the sort of biggest challenges maybe that you've experienced on that side of things?
I came on when we joined Whole Foods, and I think actually weirdly not going too fast when you get your first retailer. Whole Foods was our first one, really putting a lot of focus and attention into that and really making sure that your sales go well, you develop customer loyalty, that kind of thing, rather than going, okay, we've got one, let's get 10 more kind of thing. So taking it slow, I actually think, was a good thing. We sort of had Whole Foods, and then Planet Organic came on relatively quickly after that, and we really focused on growing those two. And I think it makes a big difference doing that first.
Yes, because the supply chain, and you're getting used to how to work with the rolling orders, and and marketing and supporting them and developing a relationship with your buyer. And, you know, it's actually quite difficult. You could have a whole plan of how you want to, you know, speak to your buyer, but it's hard to actually get that going, and it can take, 6 months to sort of get to know them because they're very busy. So I think that there's a lot that will help you make sure that that's working, and then you can move on to the next one. And the last thing you want to do is be in for a little bit and then be gone, because you don't usually get a second chance, is what we've found.
Yeah. And I think how we actually got in, though, we should probably give some appreciation to Bread and Jam, because that was actually how it's called Bread and Jam Food Festival. Anyone doing a food and drink startup should sign up to that straight away.
It is a great thing. I mean, the first pitch I did was actually for Planet Organic, but it came in after. But that was, I think, with those pitches, it's incredibly hard to get a pitch, but you should just apply to them all and see. But I got a pitch of Planet Organic the first time, and I made toast in the corridor and set the fire alarm off. And it was really awful. But I actually think that might have helped me with my pitch, because I came
memorable.
It was very memorable with this toast that I'd cooked in the corridor, and I'd brought my toast with me. And I remember Al Overton, who was he was the guy doing the pitch of the Planet Organic at the time, and he said, this tastes pretty good. So I think that really helped. And then we had.
Yeah. I think being face to face with the buyer and you're watching them try your product that was so beneficial, because they're receiving hundreds of products all the time. So it's really difficult to kind of get their attention and get yourself to stand out. So Bread and Jam provided that great opportunity of you're directly in front of the buyer. They've already read about you. They're kind of focused in. So that really helped. And then it kind of just grew from there. Once we had Whole Foods and Planet Organic, it just sort of slightly like slow snowballing effect. And then we've carried on doing lots of food festivals and kind of markets as well.
And I think food festivals are good. I mean, I think Holland and Barrett, that was definitely felt from sampling outside Planet Organic. They saw it because they were going past one of their buyers and they tasted it outside. I've met a few Tesco buyers outside sampling. That's something that we're working on. It's just, it does, being there as the founder sampling means that when you do meet someone who is actually able to change things for you, you are just, as soon as you've met them in person, I think you're in a much stronger position.
100%. And your consumers as well, because I remember bumping into you, or seeing you at Taste of London.
Yeah.
I was just blown away by how well the stand was doing, the buzz around it, how busy. And we know from the times that we've done that on Green and Black's, Corsten Press, or the brands, the value in just getting that face time with consumers, getting feedback, asking them questions, vice versa. You just get such a more complete picture of how people are perceiving the brand, what questions they have, what they like about it, etc. Obviously, COVID made a lot of those things sort of get put on hold. Do you still plan to do more sampling sessions and activations in the future?
I mean, it's one of our biggest things is what we know our sales increase is huge when we sample, because when people taste it, they're like, this is great, and they usually do buy it. So for us, it's the only marketing thing that we really know factually that it always works. And we always say to our samplers, our main goal is have a really good time. I don't mind if you're standing there chatting to the very pretty girl. We had a boy, asking her about her clothes. As long as you're fun and memorable, they feel relaxed talking to you. They can have as many samplers as they want. We don't, we want it to be a fun place for someone to go and stand and talk to you, and then they can try the product, and it's their own discretion, and we're not forcing it on them. So I think we've done really well with creating a good environment for somebody to just try some butter and see what they think.
Yeah, I think it's created a lot more kind of, rather, because when you go to a stand and there's a freebie and you sort of feel really guilty sort of taking one, then you sneak off. We're sort of, have as many as you want. I want you to try all 3 flavours. Let me know what you think. It's much less about buy our product. It's more try it. And I think we're also trying to get people who are resistant to plant-based products to give it a try and then go, oh, okay, that's not as bad as I thought. I'll come back and try that. So it definitely really, really helps us.
Yeah, I think we found that, like you say, it's easy with chocolate because a lot of people like chocolate, but we were always like, take as much as you want.
Yeah.
And really, and sometimes you get some feedback that say, oh, I don't like that. Dark chocolate and milk chocolate. Well, go over there. Have some of that. You'll like that one. So no, it is about being generous and welcoming and just because we've all been to places where people are like, look at your badge and at a trade show or something. Yeah. Not interested in you.
And also your brand equity, because if you do a few of these shows over the year, you're reaching a lot of people that can become that kind of evangelists for the brand. And so an opportunity for them to meet you and get to know the personality, because it's those evangelists, for the lack of a better term, that will go away and champion and tell 10 other people about it, that will then become connected in social media. They'll share and follow and comment and like, and can really be a catalyst for, you know, just growing the brand more and more.
Yeah, it's true. And we've met lots of people who sort of said, oh, I met you at this stand, and so we always sell quite well, but it's also that thing of brand exposure that really helps as well at all those food festivals.
I think it comes down to people, though. You've got to have your product tasting delicious and it's got to be great, but the people that are there, people are the most important thing. So choosing people that are the right for the character of the brand and are, you know, likable and people feel comfortable around it. You can't undermine how much the vibe and the atmosphere is important when you're selling something. And for me, that's been a crucial part of how we've sort of developed the way that we sample our branding.
100%. So what does the future hold for Mergulo then? I'm sure there's plans for MPD and more sort of listings. Is there any particular kind of channel that you're targeting in particular, or anything you can tell us about what the ambitions are for the future?
Yeah, so obviously we're trying to expand on the not just for toast. So we're developing a variety of more flavoured butters for cooking. And we're working with quite a few chefs at the moment to try and do that. So that's kind of what we're leaning into next. But, you know, it's also scaling up the brand currently and trying to get into one of the big four is also a major aim. So
yeah, but we're sticking with butter. Right?
Yeah, we're staying with the butter zone.
Yeah, lots of people always ask us, are you going to do any other plant-based things? But I think butter's our thing for sure. And there's I think there's quite a few brands who've made good plant-based milks. So we're going to just stick with butter rather than
really well.
Yeah, I think, and it focuses the mind, and because there isn't a great deal of good alternatives out there, and you've got one, you know,
there's enough opportunity there just within that.
Yeah, it's a big market, it's a big category.
Yeah.
Do you have 5 top tips that you would suggest to anyone in your position several years ago now looking to launch a new food or beverage brand?
I would say, you know, don't quit your job. Do it on a very small scale. Make it, you know, 4 Saturdays, get something that tastes okay and take it to a market and try it out. I think doing a little concept launch is the best thing you can do. And I didn't do that. And I think it took a lot longer. If I'd just done a small, tight, this is what we're going to make it, and then gone and said, and then figured out I think a lot of people sit down and come up with these big ideas, and then it's much better to get something that's not good enough, narrow enough, and then react to it, because then you can say, okay, we've got this thing, what packaging is actually available, instead of saying I want it in this and this, and then trying to go backwards is a lot harder. So I think that would be quite a key, and finding someone that you can fight with and that you really trust and that you think is a lot more talented than you, and choose them to work with you. Because I think doing it alone is something that is incredibly difficult after a sustained amount of time.
And you want to try and enjoy the process as much as you can, which I imagine is much easier to do when you're not on your own.
Yeah, for
Do you
sure.
want any tips?
I would say reach out to people. I think the food and drink industry is we found a very kind of friendly.
Absolutely.
And so any time I've reached out to people, literally found their email, I've always had a response, end up having a call or a coffee, and it's just, you can just soak up so much from people who've done a similar path or who are more experienced. And I'd say that has been really beneficial. And talking to other brands, talking to people who are in a similar boat, that kind of thing, definitely helped. Because when we started, we had no idea what we were doing a lot of the time. And so once you talk to somebody, it gives you a lot more confidence, and then you can feel like you can go ahead.
And we were saying earlier about, you know, it comes up so often that is such a common scenario, that people who enter the food and drink industry don't have the background and don't know what they're doing. It's really common, and people feel that it's not, and it's just me, everyone else in this space is an expert, but no, it's not the case.
And you did have some experience, i.e., you know, you worked in sort of chefing. A lot of the people we work with haven't had any sort of experience in food and drink. So, but it's still, there's so much to learn, especially when you're putting a product that goes on the shelves.
Yeah.
It's very different to chefing.
Definitely. And I joined loads. Actually, the Food Hub was a great little community that I joined, and you can post on Facebook. And
He's a big fan.
It's so good. Well, for me, at the beginning, tiny things that are probably totally given, like knowing that you needed where to do your barcode for the packaging and all this kind of thing. You get these just recommendations, and it was so helpful, just running things past people. And it's a really good community.
Yeah, I think reach out to some startups and say, can I just have a sit down with you? I'm trying to do something. And they'll give you, the basics about all the things you'd need. It would just have helped so much if we'd been given a little list of what is going to have to happen once you start. And people are happy to do it when they're small. So go for them.
Fantastic. Well, some lighter questions to wrap up then that we always like to ask our guests. What would your desert island dish be, or dishes?
Ooh, good question. Well, actually, I have one dish that I had the other day, which I didn't create, so I can't take credit for. But it's a restaurant called Acme Firecult in Dalston, and they make, I don't know how they do it. I've tried to recreate it and I can't. But it's a kind of, they slow roast these leeks over coals, and it's got that kind of wood smoked barbecue-y. I don't know, and then it's got a kind of, I think it's a creamy tofu-y thing on the bottom and a pistachio something, but it's just delicious. I think I would take that with me.
That's becoming a bit of a trend at the moment, this whole thing, as well as getting stones sort of on the fire and then taking them off and putting them on top of things. And we're seeing that come. It's been around for obviously probably since time began. It is becoming a bit of a trend now.
So you get that flavour of
exactly
that what you're saying.
So transformative.
And also cooking, but quickly. And
I like anything cooked on a kind of coal or wood smoked. Delicious.
Same.
I mean, it's similar for me. For me, it's the experience always goes with it. So, stealing strawberries when you were little, and those were always one of the best tastes you could get. It had to be stolen when you were sort of 4, or, outdoor cooking, on like barbecuing on a beach and just doing everything from scratch. So for me, even though I love the restaurant thing, I can't get away from the whole, corn on the cob, which you eat with your hands and it's grilled. I find all of those type of foods 100%. Are the most, they taste the best. Go walk up a really big hill and have the Twix at the top of the Twix. I promise you will taste way better than if you have it in a store. So I think experience is something that creates the best food.
It's two things when people, if they want tips of things to do on a barbecue, the real kind of things that people would never think of. One is corn on the cob with good butter, of course, on afterwards. But the flavour, the charring of the corn. The other one is baba ganoush. And I think when you do it properly, that smoky flavour coming through, they're two things. Because people think about the meat and the peppers and so on. They're all great, but corn on the cob and baba ganoush are great. Yeah, you just mentioned a restaurant that you really enjoy. Do you have a restaurant that one of your favourites, Mairi?
Yeah, I mean, I love Ombra, which is in Hackney. The Well Street Kitchen is a breakfast place. It's all outdoors, and it's just really good quality breakfast that's kind of a little bit with a twist. They'll do sort of baked beans, but they'll make them from scratch, and it's done really well. And it looks like a little cafe. So I think those two are probably the ones that stick out for me. But there's so many, it's hard to pick.
Sure. And what about podcasts or books or shows? Any sort of resource? You've mentioned, obviously, rightly so, the Food Hub, Bread and Jam, both Jason Gibbs creations. Any other kind of resources that you just found to be useful that you could recommend to our listener?
Well, I've got 2 podcasts that I listen to. Elizabeth Day's How to Fail, I always find really useful, especially on the bad days where everything's going wrong, and it reminds you, okay, this is teaching me things. I'm learning from this. And then the other one, I think it's called How I Built This, and it's loads of brands, not just food and drink, but who talk about their whole journey and how they started out, which at the beginning was really helpful as well, because it reminds you these big brands did do the exact same process that we're all struggling through. So it's like we can get to the other side. And then books-wise, Malcolm Gladwell's books, all of them I've read, and I just find it teaches you to look at it in a different way and kind of challenge the norm and all the status quo. You can kind of, so I found that really useful for me. I'd say those are my ones.
I've got 2 books. I'd say the Artist's Way, which is not about food or drink, but it's just quite good on an emotional level. If you're doing something and you're running it, it's really good for getting you to think about, internally what you need to deal with, how to enjoy it and make it good. And I think those kind of books can be really useful. And then the Lean Startup was really good. It's great for just getting you to realize that it's never going to feel good enough, and you have to slightly let go of your ego, and it's better to get something out and let everyone else tell you it's wrong, and then you're doing it right, because you react to that and you say, okay, yeah, they don't like that. I've got to move it that way. And I think letting go of wanting to have the perfect product that everyone goes, wow, that's just unrealistic. And it's getting it wrong that will help you move in the right direction.
We talked about this so recently. Get it 80% of the way there. And then get it out there and then get the feedback and change.
Yeah.
if you try and get 100%, you'll spend so much time and money and resource doing that.
It's diminishing returns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Very much so. Great. Well, it's been fascinating hearing more about your journey, plans for the future. Love the brand, love the product. I'm definitely going to recommend anyone who can get hold of it. Please do try, whether you're a vegan or not, as we now know. And thank you for coming onto the podcast. Wish you all the best for the future. And hopefully you'll come back in the future as well to tell us even more.
Yeah, we'd love that.
fingers crossed.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And for more information, please visit tastehead.com. We hope you join us for our next episode.